All right. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us for another MSPs in Conversation. Today, we're going to be talking about motivating your team for success, strategies around driving performance within your business. We've touched on this topic lightly before, but what we wanted to do is do a bit more of a deep dive today. So we will work through the topic. As always, this is recorded, so you can always refer back to it. It's a podcast. It's cut up into snippets on social, so make sure you check that out. But as always, please ask questions. If there's something that you're interested, that you want to ask our panelists, please drop it into the chat. So very quickly, a little housekeeping, a little bit about Hosted Network. So if you don't already know, we are a wholesale cloud and telco provider for Aussie MSPs. We started as a MSP ourselves back in 2003 and shifted to channel only in 2013. So celebrating 10 years of being channel only, which has been a really fun journey. But as I always say, we're not here to talk about us. We're here to hear from our wonderful panelists. Ryan, James, and Jordan, thank you so much for joining us today. Can I get you guys to do a brief introduction to about yourselves? Ryan, starting with you.
Yeah, certainly, no problems. Look, for those that don't know me on here, which should be kind of rare, but yes, the CEO of 360 Consulting, was in the MSP space for 25 years, do a lot of merger and acquisitions, help other MSPs and CSPs increase profitability, and a lot of consulting in and around the industry, a lot of public speaking and whatnot. So yeah, kind of, if you don't know me, that's kind of funny. It's good. Love to speak to you at some point.
Wonderful. Thank you. James, welcome.
Thanks, Ben. Hey, everyone. James Bergl with Pax8. I've joined them about 18 months ago now as their VP of Community and Ecosystem for APAC. And what that really means is helping to build an MSP community, helping to enable our partners to go out there and achieve growth and profitability. I've been in the MSP space in Europe and the UK since 2010. So this is my 14th year working with MSPs. Absolutely love it and excited to be here today to share some of the findings over the years.
Wonderful, thank you. And Jordan.
Hey Ben, thanks for having me. Jordan from Otto IT, and I've been with Otto and formerly Milan Industries for 5 years now. And my focus is really on our growth and driving growth across, whether it be new clients, our existing clients, and leading our sales and marketing team to do the best we can and disrupt the market and empower our staff to really have the skills and tools to have some good quality conversations and get the solutions our clients want.
Wonderful. Well, thank you guys for joining us. We've invited you all today because in the industry, you run really successful teams. It doesn't go without notice how your success, and I'd love you to provide some of those light bulb moments for the audience today. But to start us off, let's get rid of this screen share. If I can find the right button, which I never can. There we go. All right. So first of all, let's start off with what good looks like in a good company culture. Now, we've touched on this briefly over the in other series, but let's do, high level. What does good look like in your words? James, let's start with you.
Yeah, it's an interesting question, and it's probably evolved a little bit since we've been through COVID. My former role was leading and running the data team down under, and we had an exceptional team and a lot of fun with that. For me, what does good look like? I guess if we say what does great look like as well, with regards to a team, I want to personally feel like I love getting up in the morning and going to the office and meeting the team and driving towards a mission with my teammates is incredibly important. And I would always say to my team, if you're not happy, you don't enjoy coming to work, and you're not enjoying being part of this, give it a try for another 3 months just to make sure it's not something that you can overcome, and consider looking elsewhere. You need to be really passionate about coming in. And if you have a passionate team around you, then there's the concept of culture eats strategy for breakfast. Experience is less important than having a highly unified team that are all fighting for each other to be successful. So that's one of the things that I love being a part of, and love helping to create as well.
That's a very apt way. We often talk about EOS, and EOS has a model that sort of says GWC gets it, wants it, has capacity to do it, and that's very much the gets it but wants it, right? People need to want to come to work. Jordan, what do you guys do to, I mean, I like that, James, you corrected that and sort of said, what does great look like? So what do you guys do to say a great, performing team within Otto IT?
I wouldn't expect anything else from Bergl than to say great. So it's good. We're on the same page. I think there's a few things that we do, and I'm sure a lot of other businesses do, but I mean, it starts from the top. But the structure, we're an EOS business as well, and the structure and that's really important to have the foundations to drive that. One of the things that I promote within my team, for example, is really just understanding that we've got each other's backs and we're there to support each other, no matter how tough something is. If they can't do something, just to have the confidence that to be open and honest with each other. And I think that's the start of developing that really good team bond. And having fun is the other thing that we want to do. We know we get some good results, and we know we sometimes don't get some good results, but that's going to happen. And it's really important to reflect and consider some of the great things we do. So we'll do our typical L10 every week on a Monday, but at the end of the week, it's even things just around sharing what people are grateful for the week, and also how they've made a positive impact on someone, whether it be in the business or outside of the business. So it's not just about numbers, it's really focusing on other purpose-driven discussions, and then calling out success across the business. So we use Employment Hero, and that recognition is aligned to our values. So if somebody's done something that's really helped them, or they've identified something, call it out, recognize them. So they do it through the platform, but then we also call it out in our headlines and share that across the business as a company headline as well. So that's a couple of the things that we do, and really just making sure that everyone understands the direction we're going in, and just keep on reinforcing the cultures and values and talking about it.
I was waiting for someone to mention the word values. In your organization, how important do you think values are? I ask that because when I first started, my business 20 years ago, we didn't put a lot of, importance on it. That's obviously changed. I wish I had have done that sooner. But in Otto IT, how important are your values?
One of the most important things, like every EOS business, you look at them every 12 months and review them. We just had our annual planning day about 2 weeks ago, and we didn't change them. That was the first time we haven't changed them since we started EOS. So we've landed on some really good values that align to our people, and I think that's a reflection of who we have in our team as well. Everyone's aligned. We've got some amazing people, which is great. The values come back down to that's what drives everything, and that's what helps build your culture. So if we're looking to achieve and do something, and perhaps it doesn't sit right, just how does that align to our values? And making sure that we're talking about our values. Often it's easy to come up with some really cool values that sound good and look good, but unless you're having those conversations and reinforcing that through discussions of whether you're calling people out for success, or perhaps even having a different type of conversation around how do certain actions align to our values, and taking the time for people to consider and think about that, it's the most important thing to drive performance and the team culture, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think values are one of those things that they do change. I think organizations aren't a fixed structure like that, right? They're a living organism, and they do grow and change over time. And I think if that's a good piece of advice for our audience, is that over time things do change and your values can adapt with you. Ryan, we talk about. Look, I'm calling you Ryan again. I'm going all formal. We only had this conversation the other day. Oh, not again. Fuzzy. We were talking about sort of the EOS like only last week, and sort of a lot of our partners run it. Over 50% of hosted network partners run EOS. in terms of your approach back when you were running Correct, how did you go about finding your values?
So we came through, we had I think across my time and tenure at Correct, which is about 17 years, I think we had probably 4 sets of values, I'd say, over that time. So as you said a few minutes ago, the values do change, they evolve, they improve, that's a key part of it. So from that perspective, yes, I'd say, I think the last ones we got through it was funny because we actually implemented EOS. So we did Giselle's and then StratOp and then EOS before we sold. And we're actually really quite happy with our values. And then we actually basically threw them out and started again. So it was quite funny. But it was interesting because the values tie everything back. It gives you a common grounding point, a common North Star. Like, okay, you've got a vision and all of those types of things, and the mission and why you do certain things. They're all critical components as well, to be clear. But the values you can really call people and hold people accountable to. Does your action, does whatever you're doing right now hold aligned to our value or to that particular value or any values? We added it in all of our recruitment and interviews. We would actually go through our values, and then we'd actually ask them very specifically which one of those values aligns best with you and why. And we'd just shut up. We would actually wait and give them time to actually think about it. It was in all of our paperwork they would have seen. It was on our website. It was up everywhere around the office. There was big A0 versions of this in the boardroom and whatnot, but we actually took it serious. And you can say it like when we roll off, and it's not easy now, but I still remember the old Correct values. But if we rolled those off, you can actually understand, because we're passionate about it, of how we talk about them still to this day.
Yeah, and it's that's what I've found when we got ours right, and when you get them right as well. And it's as with many things, you got to put a stake in the ground. You got to start somewhere, right? And you often our core values changed when we rolled out EOS, and our leadership team turned around and they said it in different ways than I said in my head. All right, and I was amazed at how they took them deeper than I ever think I could, because I didn't think as a business owner that my team would actually buy in that deeply, and how I was wrong. And that really changed for us with values. And in terms of motivating people and holding people accountable, but not just from a management perspective, but also from an individual employee holding themselves accountable, right? It's like they've, yeah, go on, John.
So I was going to say, yeah, that resonates so our values are people first, authentic, no bullshit, and committed. And when we changed them to that 12 months ago, we did our town hall or whatever, all different types of businesses, but our annual update, and we've got people all around the country and overseas, and so it was on Teams, and I could hear people in the room sort of being happy. You could hear the happiness around some of the values, and we've got things like mouse pads and all different things with the values on them. At the end of the call, one of the guys had crossed out certain values, updated them, like they'll just wrap. It really had resonated. So that was a good feeling that we were all aligned, and I guess the last 12 months have demonstrated that the values have helped us deliver what we've delivered.
Yeah, you touched on a really important word there, alignment, right? And I think one of the things with EOS that I learned is vision as well. I realized when we rolled it out that we myself as the CEO didn't necessarily communicate that as well as what I thought I did, right? In my head, I thought I did, but everyone had a different idea. James, in Pax8 and organizations that you've worked with, and successful MSPs that you work with, how do they drive and ensure everyone is aligning to a successful vision?
So just to talk on the values.
Yeah, please.
They do this, I think, really, really well. And I'll share that. And then I'll also just share some anecdotal thoughts on how to continually implement that. But the Pax8 have got their global ones. They're on the website that you can go off and you can see in there. They're innovate, elevate, advocate, and celebrate. So they've all got that 8 in there as well. So that works out quite well. But those are the values that we live by. And it's interesting because they're not just the ones that are set and forget. It's when we've got our half-yearly reviews and annual reviews, like we have to measure ourselves and our team and our colleagues against those values and say, how do they perform against that value as well? So that is, I think, one way of continually instilling that is important. So, in the 18 months or so I've been there, they haven't changed for quite a while. And I agree that I think that evolution and direction transitions, your values do need to transition a little bit, but they are critical because your values are your personality and they're also your DNA. Just because someone doesn't align to them doesn't mean they're a bad person, but they may be a bad cultural fit for your business to drive forward. So, like Fuzzy, I love what you're saying in terms of you show them up front. And just watching people's behavior and their body language as they read them and you see them respond is going to go, you're out, just because you can see that their body language is not aligned. So that's that's how we do it at Pax8. And in all of the the shout outs that we do, it'll always be, we want to celebrate someone or we want to advocate for this particular person or this team, etc. So, there is a combined effort to keep that vocabulary going and anchor back to what we're here to do. With regards to how do you ensure that it is delivered upon, that's tricky. It can be tricky, particularly if you're a remote-based business. You've got work from home staff. Like I work in Sydney, the team are in Brisbane. We've got about 150 people in region now, but we're beginning to scatter all over the place. But one thing that I've learned is really critical is communication, and communication from the top down, and authentic communication as well. And again, if you get people on the bus that are aligned with your value system, then the benefit of that is that everyone can be authentically themselves. But having frequent catch-ups, I'm a big picture sort of person. I think it's important to get people bought into where you're going, is paint that bigger picture and create something more meaningful than the job that they're just in today, that they're working for, and that mission that they're a part of, and then communicate and then celebrate. Like I'm a big fan of celebrating. For those that know me, we've maybe had a couple of celebrations over the years, but it doesn't have to be going out drinking, but find a team activity. And if you guys achieve some great results on the help desk, or you hit some annual revenue targets, maybe you take everyone to the city for a night with them and their +1 or something like that. But just find ways to communicate, set realistic stretch goals, and then celebrate as a team when you will achieve that. So that's the, I guess, the balancing act of a recipe that I've seen be successful.
I think that's something we did wrong. So, not wrong. We could have done a lot better. Let's say it that way. It's probably better. We didn't celebrate the wins as much, and that's the hard thing from kind of being an entrepreneur and a business owner and whatnot. Is as soon as you achieve something, you're looking for you're already on to the next thing, and that's something we identified in the last couple of years, and we started to get better at it. And I know even in my life in general, I need to get a lot better at celebrating those wins and celebrating what we did well. So yes, that's a big one, and something I'd actually openly say to everyone that, I think most business owners wouldn't do it anywhere near as well as they could or should do. And that's something I've got to say, Bergs, you, even in your previous roles, you did very well at.
James, staying with you, in terms of sales and getting someone to buy in, you've really developed some great sales culture in the organizations. I think, I've said this to you before, I see you as, one of the leaders in our industry for that. Do salespeople need to align to values as much?
Yeah, absolutely. There's like, we would work with an unofficial policy of a no dickhead policy. And just because someone's capable, if they do it in the wrong way, that isn't aligned with the value of who we are and what we stand for, then there's a short-term gain and a long-term pain. So getting salespeople bought into your vision, and I always say, the customer comes first, the business comes second, and then you come third. And if the integrity of that chain breaks and someone starts putting themselves ahead at the demise of either the business or the customer, then they shouldn't be there. But again, that comes back to a value system and a value chain. But yeah, I think it's critical, and it's not to be overlooked. And if you see behavior that isn't acting with your values in mind or your integrity, then then you're right to question it and stop it out.
Okay.
Sorry, but I'm smiling because exactly what you said, Bergs, was one of our old our values, was to do the right thing. Do the right thing for the customer, do the right thing for the company, and do the right thing for yourself. So you said exactly the same thing.
Well, the reason I ask that around sales is that I still remember hiring my first few salespeople and going through that interview process, and you get sold to. If you don't have a lot of experience hiring salespeople, and I think that, values is that sort of foundational element to, set that benchmark, right? It doesn't, yes, they can sell, but that could potentially cause you more pain down the line.
Yeah, I mean, I've hired a lot of sales reps. Sorry, okay. I'll just finish. I was thinking I've hired a lot of sales reps over the years, and I made a lot of mistakes along the way. And there's a framework that I'm happy to share, which has helped me, which is don't listen to the words, but look for the characteristics. So the things I look for are going to be your IQ, EQ, drive, coachability, and culture fit. And you can look for those, not just in what they say necessarily, but how they respond, and the energy of how they actually engage with those questions. And those are the characteristics. If you get them, you're onto a winner. I learned because people told me they love cold calling and coming in early, and you know what? Once they had the job, they didn't. So you've got to look for that, the characteristic, the DNA. Sorry,
previously about hiring for attitude over all else, right? So, yeah. Jordan, what were you saying? Do you have anything else you want to add?
I was going to agree. I think if you hire based on values, like we have, we've brought on people with the same thing, you can get sold to, and but you need to weed that out pretty quickly. And I think having some trusted people in the business that when someone comes on board, even just getting them to observe, because you can't see everything, and just getting some feedback on that alignment can really help. But when you've hired on values, when you've got a high performer and they're not performing, it's not necessarily because they can't do the job or they're no good. There might be other things going on in the background, and they can help understand if they've got other challenges, or, perhaps there's other things that are happening. So if they're the right value alignment, it can definitely help in so many ways.
Okay. All right. Let's move on a little bit in terms of leadership. So we talked about values. Leadership is demonstrating those values from the top down. First of all, for a little definition, kind of like what I asked before about what does good look like. Fuzzy, what do you think the difference is, or what do you feel the difference is between, say, a leader and a manager?
I go hoping you weren't coming to me first. I'm torn. I'll be honest, I'm openly torn in that you see the stuff on LinkedIn and all that, of what a good manager is and what a good leader is. And I think there's a little bit of both. Like sometimes you've got to be a hard person. Like, yes, a leader is, again, helping everyone, pushing everyone forward, isn't telling them what to do, is asking them and whatnot. I agree with a lot of those things. A leader really, people want to follow them. Like a manager, again, people are a little bit scared of them or whatnot. It's like, I'm not certain on some of that. Again, look, there's good managers, bad managers, good leaders, bad leaders, in everything we do. But yeah, I think a leader is someone that should inspire the team and everyone around them to want to do better. And it's not just the people that report to them. It's anyone in this industry or anything around in other parts of the company and other businesses and your clients. All of those things. If you're a good leader, in my mind, you're inspiring those people to do better, or to strive and to try and deliver something that's a bit different to everyone else.
Okay, and Wayne Small has just added a little comment there that says people go above and beyond when they're inspired by a good leader. Very true, Wayne. I can't agree more. A little bit of on that topic, how do you balance between being someone's friend, being their manager, and being a leader? What does that balance look like? Jordan, how have you tackled that over the years? I know, a tricky one, right?
Yeah.
No, you need to have some ground rules, right? Around, at the end of the day, there's a common goal that you're trying to achieve, right? And if there needs to be a difficult conversation, or it doesn't even have to, it just can be a conversation that is going to be uncomfortable, and that's okay. as long as if everyone's on the same page around where you are today and where you need to get to, and if there's a challenge or a roadblock, being having the confidence to be open and talk through that, whatever it might be, then that shouldn't be an issue if you're on the same bus and you're heading in that same direction. It comes back to, if you've got the right values aligned between the two of you, then that should be fine. Like having a difficult conversation and even having an argument at times is okay, provided you get to an outcome of, all right, we've sorted the issue out. What do we need to do? Let's get there, right? Because you all need to be focused on that one outcome and that one goal. And Fuzzy mentioned it earlier around, what are the most important things, right? The client's one of the most important things. Your people are another most important thing, and then the business succeeding and being profitable is the third, and doing it in a sustainable and risk-free way. So if you're all focused on that same vision and goal, you can just tie it back to what's the common objective we're looking to achieve. And if you need to have a difficult conversation, just bring it back to that.
So you can be a friend and a manager?
I'd hope so. I've experienced that. I've got friends that I wasn't friends with when I worked with, even 10, 12 years ago, that we still communicate regularly, right? And we develop some really tight friendships. And there'll be the odd message they send me, or even seeking advice as a friend or as a peer. And I think you can. But that really comes down to the person. If you're a good person and a good human being, then people will want to be a friend of yours, and you can still be a leader and have a positive conversation or a constructive conversation. All
right. James, any thoughts?
Yeah, I do. And I agree with Jordan. I absolutely think you can. I had 4 managers reporting to me in my former role, and I'm still good friends with them now. So it definitely can happen. So it's an interesting question, because management and leadership get intertwined. And what is the difference? The way my brain works is I try to compartmentalize them. And I say that you manage metrics and you lead people. So management is about people, it's about process and data and systems. And those are kind of binary numbers, 1, 0, sales targets, service desk metrics. The leadership piece is like what Fuzzy mentioned. It's around motivating and inspiring and creating a vision that people can get in behind and follow you. And I would almost say that one is a bit more of an art and one is more of a science. So you can scientifically measure, be a really good manager at understanding the metrics really well, and then you work someone to that. But is that person going to be super excited to come in and do that every single day? Not if they're probably not inspired and motivated to do so. So yeah, and the question I was thinking, because I've had some of those questions, and I was friends with most of my team, and still are today. But there's times where certain people don't perform, and it's a hard conversation. And the way, and I remember the first times I had to have that this isn't working out conversation. I didn't sleep the night before. Literally stayed up rolling it all night because I was just petrified of having to let someone go. And it's a battle scar that you gain, and each one's going to be slightly different when you get there. But the how I approach it now, if I have to have one of those conversations, I actually try to take the emotion out of it and act as a representative of the business. It's not me. I'm a representative of the business best interests here, and just going through that mental shift from, hey, this isn't me. It's, hey, what we're here to talk about is the metrics that we've gone through. The business is projecting a performance today, right here. This is where your performance is. So even not making it about them, but their performance. There's a gap in place. We want to support you in getting there. We want to recommend some things that we need to put in place to get you there. And this is what the expectations are going to be from the business within a certain time period. Even if it's your business, you can still represent the best interests of the stakeholders of that as well. So that's, and I've had to have those conversations with friends, and the leadership style piece. I remember one of the conversations I said, I really want you to be successful. You have got everything it takes. And I genuinely did want this person. They just were mentally a little bit checked out. I said, I really want you to do this, but you're not putting yourself in a position that the business is going to accept the performance. And he's just like, I get it, man. I completely get it. So let's go through the process. And he came out the other side good. So that's my take on it, and how I've had to differentiate between the two, and then have those conversations with your buddies as well.
Good tips there. Yeah, I mean, when early on, when you first have to let someone go, it is I like your approach. It's a battle scar, and it never gets any easier. But I like that approach of sort of, making yourself a representative of the organization in that sense. Let's stay on the topic of strategies, though. We've talked a little bit around being a leader. What do you find helps you be an effective leader, to inspire people? James, I'll stay with you.
There's a couple things. One of them is helping those that you're leading achieve greater success than they think is possible. So often you look at talent and they've got an opinion of themselves that they're not good enough, or they're not there just yet, and your experience suggests that you've got everything in it. Is how do you stretch them to come out the other side and go, wow, that was amazing, and do that in a supportive manner, that if they trip and fall up, you can actually get them back on and help them. So I think that's really important. And then I'm not a micromanager at all, but more of a, hey, let's shine the light on where you're looking to go and give them the autonomy to carve their own path. I don't want to dictate how you do something, but I want to share the vision of where we're going. And you create your own authentic path. And if you mess up, pick yourself up and keep going. And you've got the boundaries to do that. Let you keep making the same mistake. But on the whole, that gives them this sense of kind of freedom and belief that they've got the ability to try something themselves, and you often get better results. They go, actually, that was better than I would have done it myself. So those are two things: is inspire, get them to achieve better results than they thought they could do, and then give them the runway to go as fast as they can.
Okay, Jordan, Fuzzy.
I think it's interesting that, yeah, even what you're saying there, Bergl, and that the leaders were the humanists as well. Everyone thinks, oh, they put them up on a pedestal. They're still just one of us and whatnot. And yeah, they stuff things up, they make mistakes. But again, I think what sets most of the better ones apart is that they own it, they're honest about it, and go and do something about it.
I think Jordan's talking, but we can't hear you.
Oh, are we there? So I had,
Yep.
There we go.
we had, so we're doing performance reviews this week, and I had a similar sort of conversation with one of my staff, and they called out around one of the things is that they are making mistakes. And, what I've always said is it's okay to make a mistake. As long as we identify I've made the mistake, we'll call it out early, we can get it resolved. And then ideally don't keep making that mistake. We learn from it. But if we see that there's a trend or there's something happening, look into why the mistake was made and what can you do differently to ensure it doesn't happen. And, that can be logging an issue in the L10 for the team to discuss it if you're not aware, if you don't know why you're making mistakes, but perhaps getting a different perspective, or if you've got the idea, bring that to the team and get them to help. Yeah, I think in terms of, you hear motivation is the other thing that I feel that people, you shouldn't, as a leader, you shouldn't have to motivate people. Inspire people is quite different, but motivating people should have the motivation to come and do what they want to do each day. But it's important to understand how they motivate themselves, and then as a leader be able to focus and enable some of those activities, whether that's personal growth being important for them, or recognition or reward, but then to get to that strategy or that destination, just involving them on that journey. So as a team, one of the things we do from a sales team perspective, for example, is just include them in when we're planning out what are the goals, coming up with the plan to achieve those goals as a team early on, and everyone has a responsibility to achieve those goals. So they might not necessarily be accountable, but they're responsible for certain tasks and actions to achieve that greater goal that as a team collectively we're going to deliver, is another thing that we do.
Okay. So we touched earlier, and no one, I don't think anyone's mentioned the word trust yet. So one of the things that over the years that, and I've mentioned it in this series before, I got thanked by one of my staff members, and he's now our operations manager. And he turned around to me, and this is Luke, if he's on the call. He said, "Thank you for trusting me with that." And I still remember that conversation because I didn't realize that I was actually trusting him with something. In that sense, I thought I just handed it over. What have you found to be successful to hand over ownership to things and allow team members to have that autonomy in making their own decisions? That, there's a lot of people on the call here that they make all the decisions, and that's not scalable. So what have you guys found that is successful to encourage people to make, quality decisions? Ryan?
Sorry, Fuzzy.
Oh.
I would just think about, what's the worst case scenario if this decision doesn't go as planned? Is it going to involve something catastrophic? More than likely, it's probably not. Maybe you have a little bump, but I would weigh up the opportunity and propensity for growth by developing a new skill set and the ability to the upside versus the downside. Most of the time, unless it's critical, and there will be times where it's critical, there's more upside than downside. But do it in an environment where you, it's safe.
Boundaries, like you mentioned a second ago.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of, when I was, a few years ago hiring SDRs, I would want to get them on the phones as quickly as possible. Certain organizations say we want to do 3-4 months of training before, but I would rather just give them a week's worth of training and throw them on the phones. And I would say make as many mistakes as you can as quickly as possible. Because there's no experience like real world experience. So worst cases, we do a bad pitch on a great account and we don't get them for a while. So what? Move on to the next. It's not the end of the world, but their ability to get up to speed and grow quicker. If you've hired the right person with the values and intelligence, etc., then yeah, I'm all for autonomy and being freedom to do what you want to do.
Okay.
Yeah, I think trust, there's a few different variations of it. So one is from the leader trusting their staff, but then it's also the team trusting each other. And so from a leader perspective, there's basic things you need to ensure. One, do they have the right tools they're going to need to be able to do the job that they're looking to do or that you want to enable them to do? And by the way, this is something that I've struggled with because you want to deliver things at a certain standard, and it's having the confidence that someone else will do it at that same level. So it's not easy. Making sure that they're clear on the outcome they're looking to achieve and the support, and just checking in regularly. And it's not a matter of micromanaging it. It's just letting them know there's support there, and just, are they facing any challenges? And I know I'd caught up with Bergl probably a couple of years ago almost now, over a period of a month or two. And that was the advice he gave then is the advice is just given on this call. So absolutely agree with everything he just said. And just making sure they're clear on what success looks like, so they're going in that right direction. But from a team perspective, you might have great people that are all really good at certain levels, and there's just a bit of lack of trust in each other, and then people are double checking what's being done, or different things. And can I use a sporting analogy? Is that okay? I know we're a tech call, so I'll look at.
It'll go over my head, but go for it.
I'm involved pretty heavily in a cricket club, and we've been around for quite a while, but we've never won an A-grade grand final. And we had a new coach, we had a really good captain, and we had probably the best team we'd ever had, and we just weren't getting there. And there was a defining moment that happened where it wasn't in a game, it was on a Tuesday afternoon before training. The captain and the coach took the players into the change room and just started having a chat and just calling out some of the things we'd done well and some of the things we hadn't done so well, and just went around the room, and every player started to talk about what they saw in the other team members, what were their strengths, but then also what were some of the weaknesses. And then each person spoke about what they felt was their strengths and weaknesses, and if they could do anything differently. And at the end of it, everyone walked out of that room with a bond that was tighter than ever before, knowing that didn't matter what happened, someone had their back if something went wrong, and they were there to support each other. And then they ended up going on to win a grand final, which was excellent. But it's just that trust in each other and that bond as a team, then they all are going for that same common goal. and can back each other all the way.
So we got a question here from Daniel. What have you done in the past to address when trust has been broken? And I can see James has jumped straight into the chat and answered it. Thank you, James. But Fuzzy, from your side, what have you done, or what have your team members done to tackle when trust has been broken?
Look, it's hard. It depends on how it was. Look, it's not a 30-second question. It's how was the trust broken? Was it vertical? Was it horizontal? So was it peer-to-peer? Well, you can guide them, you can help them, but it's going to take time. And look, 90% of the cases, it's time. As they have to prove that it was a one-off event or whatever happened, and that they're not going to do it again. That kind of builds back up. Sometimes it can't. Sometimes it depends on what it was. Trust can't be broken, can't be repaired on certain things. So at that point in time, yeah, you may actually you might be exiting that person, or that person might resign, or whatnot. If you're looking from a manager or from a leader perspective, sometimes you can't have that, and that's just what it is.
Yeah, trust is a big topic in that sense, right? I mean, I've had team members where that's been broken over the years, and sometimes you can't walk it back. And that's a tough situation to be in as well. But it's something that everyone will tackle differently, I guess, as well, right? Depending on the circumstances.
I think it depends on the situation. It always comes down to the situation. If it's something major, then there's probably not a lot of chance or it's going to take years for that trust to be rebuilt. If it's something minor, then it could just be a conversation and it may not actually be a trust issue in the end. It may be that someone didn't understand the context of why someone made a certain decision. So having a little bit of a discussion around that context, then someone could see the other side of that. So, yeah.
And it's interesting, Fuzzy. One of the things that I've learned over the years is always try to get a balanced perspective. If you're hearing something, get both sides of the story before you actually action or make a decision. And I'll give you an example. Yeah, there's been years where I've had a partner email me saying, "Hey, I haven't heard from this person. They've done a crappy job or whatever," and initially when I'd get those, I'd knee jerk and go whip the rep and see what's going on. But then I learned after doing that, he goes, "Can I just walk you through my communication?" I go, yeah, actually, you're more in the right here. I know the customer's always right, but you're more in the right. And then I'm able to see there's two sides to the story. So that's something which I would I've learned myself to always try to do.
David,
I'll call that out for a second. You're 100% right, but I don't necessarily agree with the old mantra that was in my mind 20, 30-year-old thinking. The customer's always right. I think look, I've told a customer before that they're wrong, or that we're not going to accept that, or we're not going to do whatever. Sometimes you've got to have that frank conversation as well. And while yes, the customer is critical and key, I think your staff are more important.
I agree. Yeah.
I
agree. And it's incredibly empowering for your team for you to fire a customer as well.
Oh yeah.
They're going to gain a bit of loyalty.
Yeah. Yes.
And your other customers or clients will benefit from it as well, because you're not focusing all your attention on dealing with those spot fires that tend to come up.
You can always talk about that with new customers as well. It sets the expectation that you've got to be a right fit. Otherwise, you're not going to just let it hang and let it happen. You're just going to do something about it.
Yeah, I had someone ask me the other day, "What's your target market?" And in EOS, you need to define your marketing strategy, and but we also have a few other things that go in there. And I said, "Look, these are some of the verticals we typically work with, but the way that we determine if someone's a good fit is that do they fit these types of personality traits and values, and can we work well with them? Because we know there's certain clients that if they're aligned to our values, we will do great things together and we'll achieve some great outcomes. But if they're not, it's going to be a challenge from day one. So that's definitely our approach when it comes to new clients as well.
Yeah, it's I was actually having a conversation with someone with an MSP this morning, and they were effectively bitching and moaning about a customer, but they've had this customer for years and years and years. I'd say going on 10 years, and they'd finally gotten to the point that they were ready to call it, and they were, because they'd seen what it had done to their team members.
Mhm.
I think that it was along the lines of, I saw an SMS and that was it. They were dealing with it, the staff were dealing with it. And even though it wasn't their problem, but it took time. It's scary to have to do that. Just like letting go a staff member, right? It's scary when you've got revenue and you've got all those extra bits that you're looking at. That's whole extra layers of complexity. All of this, though, trust, all these sort of bits and pieces come down to communication. And I think that communication is a fundamental principle of ensuring that your team is performing, successfully. So how do we enhance team communication, particularly for those of us, and I know that not all MSPs work remotely. So I'd like to sort of tackle this from two sides of the fence, working from the office, but also from remotely. But how do we tackle team collaboration in terms of, communication? James, you mentioned earlier that your team is starting to work more and more remotely. How do you drive good communication while still ensuring that they're meeting their outcomes and all these other bits and pieces, that they're happy at work, that they're meeting their KPIs, etc.?
Yeah, I mean, it's a really good question. I don't have a silver bullet answer because we're continually trial and error. But I've learned joining Pax8, working with some other senior experienced leaders, how they do things, and I'm happy to share them. One of the things we've transitioned to, we haven't gone through EOS, but we started implementing L10 meetings in our leadership meeting each week. So we have our leaders for the region, and then what we also do we've got multiple other teams, and each of those teams have then got their own kind of management meetings as well. So we're using the L10 structure for our own leadership, and so we have a weekly leadership meeting. We then have a bi-weekly my organization get together for the entire for our organization, and then we also do one for the wider team every couple of weeks as well. So again, it's not perfect, and we're trying to work towards communication and actually keeping everyone abreast. My team is entirely remote, like everyone that works in it. So we have struggled with a little bit of disengagement at times, but one of the things which I picked up from Tara, who's joined the business and running the sales side, is he runs a weekly meeting for the entire team, not just the sales org, but for all of the different areas. And then every department has got an opportunity to just give an update on anything critical for them for the week. And that's actually a really interesting way of hearing what all the other departments are doing, and that helps with the remote-based workers as well. So meetings, on the topic of meetings, I'm not a big fan of meetings, and I often find, like, particularly with COVID and the way meetings are set up, people put an hour in your calendar, and they feel they've got to take it all. So I've actually said to my team, be ruthless with meetings and don't show up to them if you don't need to, but reject them. And if you need to leave early, leave early. And I respond to some people that put an hour in, saying just make this half an hour as well, because it does get a bit overwhelming. But yeah, that's how we're doing it. I wouldn't say it's perfect, but structure with L10, regular levels of communication of leadership and management, and then the wider team as well.
Jordan, are you guys back in the office 100%, or what's your setup?
Yeah, we are. We were back in the office as quickly as we could be. We still have people that work remote here in Northcote. Some people will work a couple of days from home, and that works well for them. But predominantly, most staff are in the office in Northcote. In regional Vic, we have staff working remotely all the time. Because they're in different parts of regional Victoria. And then we've got staff in Queensland that are remote, and then over in Manila as well. And that's, again, a hybrid setup in Manila as well. So it is a challenge to have a dispersed team, because even if people are in the office, they're not in the same office. So that can be a challenge. In terms of driving that team communication, from my perspective, it's really, I need to be vulnerable and open, and allowing staff feeling comfortable. They can call things out to me around things that I could do differently, and then understand that the same will come back, and enabling them to become more vulnerable, really helps. Ensuring that there's a sense of community within the team, that everyone's opinions matter, and ensuring they're participating in the weekly L10 and not just sitting there and listening in. So, everyone has a voice and everyone has the ability to contribute to what we do as a company. Making sure that we're sharing everything we're doing. I like James Berg's suggestion of a weekly call and getting everyone to jump on. I think that can help definitely as well. And really promoting fun is the other thing, so that if we can get more people together, that can help. One of the things that we did through COVID, and a lot of teams, probably did this, but was we had a digital room that we created on Teams and Slack called the Hokey Pokey Room, which people could jump in or jump out whenever they wanted and just connect. And even still now, you see people doing that. They might be working from home and they'll jump in. We actually named our podcast after that. So if you're on Spotify, jump onto the Hokey Pokey Room. So that's really, being vulnerable, ensuring that everyone has the ability to, know that they can talk about different challenges and different issues, and then bring it back to what's the common objective and goal that we're looking to achieve, and making sure we're on that same path.
It's challenging, I guess, when you've got teams that are remote. I miss the water cooler talk and just how much value I used to, but before COVID, I don't think I gave it as much value as what I really should have, like that just casual, catching up. We've actually started, and this was one of our HR team initiative. We do a Friday fun day, not as good as the Hokey Pokey Room, and clearly we need to up our naming convention. But it's, we are called Hosted Network. We're pretty generic in that sense, right? But the Friday Fun Room is just half an hour, and we come up with, sometimes it's super casual. Other times it's a bit more like we play games, but it's half an hour on a Friday and everyone's welcome. And we've found that's kind of just let people break down barriers, and it's not compulsory. People can, but it is hard. I saw Daniel mention sort of like Friday pizzas. It's hard when you don't have everyone in the office in that sense. Do you guys? There was another one of our partners. They do like Krispy Kreme donuts for, I think that's actually one of their teams in Manila. Whenever they sort of go over, they're always getting Krispy Kreme donuts and those sort of things, and they're just icing on the cake. There's a bit of a pun in there if anyone got that.
Bad pun.
We do massages in the office. So we do.
Yeah.
So we have we've got Chris from On-Site Massage who's been coming out here for probably 4 years now, and so there's a massage table in the boardroom that gets folded away, and then he comes out and the team get a massage if they want. It's up to them. So that there's lots of different things that we do, and it's important. I think Daniel asked, are pizzas enough, or should you be doing things differently? And not everyone wants or takes part in what we do, but there's something that they enjoy and like and will appreciate. And so it's understanding with different people. Like someone might not want to be having too many carbs and they might not want the pizza, right? So it depends on, everyone's different. And so that can be a challenge as well. And you can't always cater to everyone's needs, but it's, if you map it out and people know what's available, that's important as well.
Another idea, again, probably depends on the size of the business a little bit, but is setting up a social committee and having different people from within your organization, from different departments, organize something together on a quarterly basis. And that way it's actually driven through the people in the team as opposed to yourself. That's what we do. I mean, we're a bit bigger, but that way you get diversified opinions and a quarterly event of some sort.
Yeah, it creates that ownership.
The ownership there, as well as it's a healthy relationship. And there's a comment we just had in the chat there, and I think that's one of the really important things here. It's that comfortableness to have that healthy relationship, to be able to have these make sure that people have each other's back and move things forward. Guys, we've got 4 minutes. I'm being tapped on the shoulder virtually to wrap things up a bit. But last tips, in terms of motivating for success. Fuzzy, what's your one big tip?
just be open, honest, communicate. When you think you've communicated, you haven't communicated about 10 times more than what you think you need to. Reinforce that in any opportunity you can. And just be real. Again, we talked earlier about the no dickheads. Just live that. Don't be horrible to the team. Don't be horrible to clients. Just be yourself, and if it's transparency and open. Keep it simple.
Yeah, I agree with all of that, Fuzzy. And I'll just add, identify and have a think about some aspirational goals, and maybe include your leadership team or your team in with that as well, and share them with the team. Set some goals, set some team rewards for getting there that incorporate all functions, and then just manage the metrics and lead your people. That's what I leave you with.
I love that. That was a perfect little thing you said earlier. Manage your metrics and lead your people.
That's it. Thanks, Fuzzy.
Jordan, any final tips of wisdom to wrap us up?
Yeah, I think I agree with everything Bill just said, but you're not always going to get it right, but make sure you keep practicing and just continuously stay focused on that objective. There's I don't know if we've got time, but there's a Michael Phelps story that would be good to share at one point, but around that. So just make sure everyone's on the same bus and just stay focused on where you want to go. And as Fuzzy said, be genuine and transparent. They're probably the most invulnerable. I think if you do that, then you're approachable and people feel comfortable coming to you, and that fosters more trust, and that's the foundation of it.
Wonderful. Guys, well, thank you so much. I've really enjoyed today's conversation, and the recording will be sent out in the next couple of days. We also always send out an email after this, but if you are interested in checking out the previous MSPs in conversation, I will quickly share my screen. We check out our events page on our website, hostednetwork.com.au/events. And our next MSPs in conversation is on August the 16th. We're going to be talking about strengthening your employer brand. So helping to attract better talent and standing out in the ever competitive environment that we've got for talent at the moment. How do you really attract and retain great IT talent? So that one will be really interesting. So make sure you attend on the August 16th. But until then, thanks for joining, and our panelists, thank you so much. Really enjoyed the conversation. Thanks, guys. See you all later.